topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart.
Hello and welcome to It's Your Voice, the show that hosts enriching conversations in diversity. My name is Bahia Yaksan. I'm a diversity educator and a core alignment coach, which means I support organizations and individuals in aligning their actions with their values. I do offer programs, if you're interested in seeing them, for your organization or as an individual on how to recognize patterns of bias, learn how to step out of them, and cultivate more inclusive patterns that create more belonging. You can go to my website, which is knowwhatyouvantcoaching.wordpress.com. Today we have a really special guest who is a treasure, and I'm grateful to have her. This will be her third time sharing her vast knowledge with us. But I'd like to first acknowledge we have a sponsor for this show, which will be a series of 10. And this program is brought to you by the City of Davis Arts and Culture Affairs Program and the California Creative Corps, which is a pilot program funded by the City of Sacramento's Office of Arts and Culture and the California Arts Council, a state agency, as an engagement campaign designed to increase public awareness about issues of social justice, climate resiliency, and more. The Creative Corps program, backed by Governor Gavin Newsom and the state legislature, looks to increase public awareness on topics such as health and safety, water and energy conservation, climate mitigation, emergency preparedness, social justice, and civic and community engagement. Diana, thank you so much for being here. You do bring vast knowledge of climate mitigation. It's rare, it's all too rare. And thank you. I just want to read your introduction now for folks who don't know you yet. And I can't wait to turn the mic over to you. So Diana Almendarez is a cultural practitioner, educator, gatherer, tender, and a generous sharer of critically needed traditional knowledge. Uniquely qualified, Diana teaches practices, traditions, and life skills in her native Madu homeland of Sacramento, where she feels like a refugee. Her grandmother, Bertha Norton, lived through 3 centuries and loved her cultures, but not the biases against them. She stuck with the positive memories of Native people who lived through the chaos. Diana says, this is a quote from a previous time when we met, "This country should be called the United States and its many sovereign nations." I really appreciate that. And today, Diana will share more of her expansive expertise on indigenous plants and ecology practices and ecological systems knowledge, and also was willing to talk about how actions can spring from land acknowledgments, which is a lot of people are asking questions about land acknowledgments. What do they mean? What's their purpose? They're not enough. So thank you so much again, Diana, for being here and being willing to share your knowledge and your perspective.
Thank you. And good morning. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Anyway, yes. Thanks for inviting me back. It's really a busy time right now. So I've been pretty busy and waking up tired and waiting for my energy to come back and then going out there and using it up again. And it's kind of like the routine, but I love it because it keeps me strong. And just getting my hands in the soil keeps me strong. Putting my feet on the earth keeps me strong. Yeah. So that's what I focus to do all the time.
Yes, I remember you sharing that. That's what keeps you going is your
Mhm.
relationship to nature and just being
Yeah.
out there and literally tending, gathering, teaching, in touch with. You have an incredible relationship with plants and the earth. Yeah. And also you are so willing to share these critically needed skills like around cultural fire burning and how to bring back water, and just really grateful that you're here.
Thank you. Um, yeah, it's just really nice to be able to go out and be a part of the environment. And that's the whole problem with education in the first is that that's what was done in the education system was taking the human out of the biology. Like we're supposed to control it. Is that why we were taken out of biology? And I'm talking more the critical Native American. Being a part of the biology, working with the animals, and I don't think anyone really understood, especially the European Westerners at that time. They never really understood that we had already created an economy that included ecology. We included the animals' welfare as well as ours. So that was vastly all over North America and South America. And I got a good piece of it. Living in California, it's different because the only way to get to California, we were kind of secluded because you have the Sierra Nevadas to the east that seriously high, sharp points.
Hmm.
That's what it's called Sierra because that means knife blade and then the Pacific West Coast is thick. It's hard to get through. And then you have the desert on the other side and then the ocean. So we are completely surrounded by all these um, specific types of regions that are very difficult to cross.
Mm.
And you would probably debate whether you should cross or not because they're dangerous, So we were pretty secluded, living in our marsh, on the land, on the hills, protected by all those things I mentioned because we were here still in huts in early 1900s, and so it was very devastating for me to even walk around in 1960 and see these hut pits that looked fresh,
Mm.
knowing that, wait a minute, that's like yesterday,
Mm.
everything in that hut pit. So that was my experience of um, growing up was being on the bike and going down the American River bike trails and stopping everywhere. So I got to know the river pretty quick, as a youth living in Sacramento. But I did want to say that I do feel like I'm a refugee living in my homeland. And I'm also an extinct Maidu Nisenan Indian. And I'm Patwin Wintu, which is across the Sacramento River in Davis, in your town,
Mhm.
which has been very welcoming and more able to take on what I say and build it and work it into their world and in the education system. It's been really great to be a part of Davis communities and Woodland because I really get a lot of things to do involving people in education. It's been wonderful. Um, Working at the Tending and Gathering Garden in Cache Creek Conservancy by the river is being there all the time. It's like my home base because that's the garden we freshly created. So it isn't an old garden, it's new. We grew it with the help of a leader who was Bertha Mitchell, who that was her first language is Wintun. Patwin
Mm.
Wintun wasn't English like me or anybody else here who was born in America. So her first language was Wintun. So it was all her strength. Her strength was in her language, and her strength is outside because Patwan, and this is the base of the language. and I think everybody should know because they'll see similarities in other Native American cultures too. Is that Patwin is the language? That's what my grandmother told me, and Wintun is what we are as a people.
Mm.
Wintun, and then Patwin represents the language, but it also means something in particular. Because while learning the language, I started looking at all the words everywhere, every word we spoke, and analyzed it. And pot for Patwin means outside. Pot
Mm.
means outside. It was like habu, pot habu. It's like let's go outside, kind of like that. And so um, there's that word pot, and then win, pot win means people. So we're outside people.
Mm.
And then my grandmother told me, well, that's what it means, yeah, but we are Wintun. Patwin is just the word for Indian, Native American. And because we've seen all Native Americans as being outside people, and we were. We all lived outside, shared living spaces, but being together and similar. So our people in California were always welcoming to other cultures because we definitely could tell a Native American. Whenever we seen a Native American, Grandma said we always would point at them and say they're Native American, or they'd say Indian. They're Indian, and they're like us. It's like it's another Indian. It was like happy. There's another Indian. Let's go learn about them, because they could do the same thing only in a different area. So it was really exciting for Grandma when the relocation act for Native Americans happened, and all these other Native Americans came to California. They were fascinated. They got to meet these other Native Americans, and they were very similar to us. So it was very interesting to learn from my grandmother those kind of things, her living how she's seen every day. And so it grew and grew, but that was like my beginning learnings with her being a kid, just noticing those things.
Well, before you say more about that, which this is all really educational and very interesting, I wanted to ask you about when you were talking about the seclusion behind the Sharp Blade Sierra Mountains and the ocean and the desert. Do you think that is partly why your family was able to maintain knowledge and not completely wipe it, and
Yeah,
all your people were not completely wiped out, because there was some protection, and that's why the knowledge was saved and allowed to be passed down, even
I do. I do think it is, because we were secluded. So by the time the Relocation Act brought Native peoples here, we were learning about what happened to them. And it was like, they don't know about their people. They already don't know about their people when they came here. They were doing powwows, and, Reverend Regalia and all that. And that was fascinating. But they didn't know that they shouldn't do it here in California, because this isn't powwow country, so that was different, because, but that's all they had. So that's kind of like a lesson I learned was as I traveled around and met different California Indians and started sharing and trying to help them with their cultures, teaching them what this was and how to use it. Tule was a big part of that. The marsh materials called Tule and cattail, because everybody used it. Everybody used those things. That was a big part of it. And so by making a connection my way, which is with my grandma and Tule and cattail, I made connections with other groups and found out what they connected to. And it was all different. People held on to what they could. And if they couldn't hold on to something, well, they'll find something to hold on to and call it. And so that they could be centered in themselves and try to get back to where we were as a people, because language was definitely one that got lost almost right away. And so people were grabbing for that. It's not like they really were grabbing, but I'm just thinking mentally, people were trying to hold on to some of these things and knowing what to hide. Like Grandma, she said, if you're going to sign a roll, don't put your address there, because then they'll come and get you and drag you out of house for that. Take your kids away and send them away. Don't put down your address. They'll come and get you.
These are realities, not exaggeration.
Yeah, those were realities.
This is what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you heard of, and that's the other thing is, what's taught about us is loosely taught.
Very loosely.
Yeah, just a little bit here, a little bit there, just a hint of it, of what happened at boarding schools. They didn't know that we were taken from our families and punished for speaking our languages. And my grandma was protected by her dad for a long time, so she was able to stay cultural for quite a while. And he was such a wonderful, I would say, a guide. He was a wonderful guide of people living here in America, and a good worker, that he had jobs all the time, and people who he worked for protected him. And one even went as far as saying, you're my kid, just pretend I'm your kid. I'm adopting you. Just say you're German. No, so just say you're German, because they can't kill Germans. There's no laws protecting you, so they could kill any Indian they want and get a bounty, $25 a head. You ever heard that entrance fee to a place, to a restaurant? Gosh, that's a reality to us as being killed. So you could literally kill a family of 4 Native Americans and have enough money to survive a month if you were a pioneer family and chose to do that, and it would be legal.
That is so true across the whole country. When I lived in the East, there were still a law in the books. This law was still in the books.
Yeah.
If a Native American walked into your yard, you could shoot and murder and kill them.
Yeah. So that's one reason. And I don't mean to take it there, but I am. That's why I don't like guns too, because that's what they use guns for, to kill Indians. And so all this time that you say, I use it because I'm a hunter and I do this, but what else do people do with it? Kill. So even if it's an accident, it's still not right to have that option in your hands, to choose it anytime you want, to feel threatened whenever you want. And these days people get threatened pretty easily,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the hunters I know are the responsible ones. They're the ones responsible with guns, and use it for for the reasons they say they're going to use it for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I always had a lot of messages they gave me, like when I first started going gathering. So I go, I'm gonna go look for this, and I'm gonna go look for this in the mountain today, because I started getting to know the mountains. So I was gonna go look for those, so I can go find a gathering site, or so here I am by myself, just going up to the mountains, looking around. And I got back one time and I took some stuff to Grandma. Grandma, is this a native plant? Is this a native plant? I just handed it to her so she could smell it and, and just experience it again, and then let me know. And so she was doing that. And then she goes, who went with you? And I go, I just went by myself. She goes, you got to watch out for, things when you go up by yourself. And I was going, oh, yeah. She goes, so when you go there, be sure to ask permission. She goes, and then, say why you're there, so that nothing is offended by you, so that they'll protect you as being part of the environment. And so I would do that. And then she would kid me all the time. And she goes, so have you seen any 4-leggeds or winged or, like that? I'd go, yeah, I did. I seen some deer and a fox. And, I just described that guy. She'd be like, oh, good, cool. And she goes, and just remember, just let them know why you're there. And so it dawned on me that, she was talking about the animals. Let them know. Okay. I didn't, so I was taking it literally, what she was saying, but at the same time, I was learning it a little bit more every time, a little bit more in depth. And then one day she goes, so are you going out gathering today? And I go, yeah. She goes, but she didn't say gathering then. She said hunting. Are you hunting today? Hunting around for materials like I did. And I go, yeah. And she goes, so remember to watch out for, and I go, oh yeah, the winged, the 2-legged. And then she added, Yes, the two-legged. Watch out for them.
Mm,
And I go, yeah, really? And she goes, yeah, because they might have a gun.
mm,
And that was just her comment. Like, don't, so just so it really did make me scared. If I ever seen a person in the forest, and I'm in
yeah.
the forest by myself, I would leave because I didn't want to, you know, find out what
Mhm.
happens.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Totally
Hmm.
reasonable and rational.
Yeah, and it was good because she gave me that warning. Don't
Yeah.
think everything's cozy and pretty and everything, because we've been through a lot. But she would never tell me, because she was a survivor, and one way of her surviving was to say, I don't think about those things no more. If I'd asked her, I go, I know you must have gone through a lot of hate and hostility and violence. I know you must have seen a lot of it. Can you share some of those stories with me? Because I wanted to know.
Mhm.
And she goes, I don't talk about that no more. And so I would bug her, and she'd be like, I don't talk about that no more. Very stern. And then I realized, at some point in my life, I realized, oh, she's protecting her mental health.
Mhm.
She's protecting her heart, and
Yeah.
she's protecting mine. So I get it now. So I stopped
Mm.
asking her,
Wow.
so yeah.
It's very powerful.
Yeah. And I just
Which is
want to let people know she was born in 1897 and died in 2001. So she had her foot in all these centuries.
that's amazing.
Hmm.
What an incredible relationship you had with her.
Yeah. And it was my time with her. I have brothers and sisters that shared time with her too, but at that point, it was my time. That I was the only kid around there seeking her information and life and stories at that time. But yeah, she had a great sense of um, speaking. She was really, and then she could talk and then stop, and if we got interrupted, and then next thing you know, 3 days later, she'd pick up that conversation where it left off, and I'd just be like, wait a minute, where were we at? you know, and so she was pretty amazing. Hmm.
Well, how did you learn? Some I know some people learn just by hearing, like absorbing through stories. It's such a
Hmm.
great way to retain information. Did you do other things? Because there's just I know you gathered so much knowledge by all your vast exploration of mountains, lands, rivers. You have been out, all over the place,
Yeah.
and did so much learning that way
Hmm.
by being out there. But from what she gave you, were you able to retain it through listening, through asking more questions? Did you write? Did you
I
write? Did you record?
she she I did write and record, and she did teach me a lot. She drove for a big part of her life until she was
Hmm,
86.
hmm,
She drove all the way up to that point. So whenever she went on a road trip, when I was younger, even in my 30s, she'd be, you want to come with me? I'm going on a road trip. I want to go see so and so. And so road trip meant way up in the hills, way far away, somewhere. That's what it meant. And so I've loved to go on the road trips. And sometimes people were still living in little tiny 1 bedroom cabins up and way in the hills, and they'd still be living there, some native people. And she knew to find them. It was just really amazing. And she'd bring them commods, food, to bring them up to date. And if they were sick, she'd work on them. And so
hmm.
those were really, I'm like, you're going to have to work on them. And then being a kid, so that means we're stuck here for a while. Being
Oh
a kid.
no, you're going to help someone get well again.
Yeah. But again, the rule, I wasn't supposed to be in there because I was a kid. I'd probably
Mhm.
ask questions or touch things I shouldn't touch, or, you know, so I wasn't allowed in. So that means I was stuck outside, but that's okay, because that's what I would have been doing anyway. And
Yeah.
a few of them had dogs that were cool. So I'd go walk with the dogs, so I just had a good time, just always good experiences, and just really fun times, life lessons, And if I found something that, again, I was picking up things and showing her, look what I found. I found this. And by the time I got back to the car and we were leaving, she would do that. And one of the things she would tell me, and I think people should hear this too, is you can't take that. That's a rock. Put it back. I'll tell you what it is, but we don't take rocks. We don't take them in our house. Leave rocks where they are. And I'm like, wow, okay. And I liked rocks, so maybe I would sneak one every once in a while, get in trouble for it. I did a lot of that, getting in trouble. That was my kind of trouble, was doing things like that, not stealing or anything. I guess it could have been looked at like stealing from the earth. It's like if I took that rock, I was taking it from its home. So there was that sense of place for everything. So
that
that's
level of respect.
Yeah. So that's actually a teaching phrase I like to use now is sense of place. And that's where we get to homeland. It's like I like the teachings when we use homeland because it gives everybody a sense of place. This is the language of this area. These are the taboos and the rules for the people who lived here. That's the sense of place. It tells you what's around you, how to behave there. If there's a dangerous place, that would be a part of a taboo in there. Don't go this way. Don't go over there. Don't stand on the edge of this. You know what I mean? There were basic taboos and rules that you had to follow everywhere you went, and they weren't always the same. So it's important to have that sense of place. There was this one place that I won't, tell exactly where, because that's their story. But, and it needs to come from them. But very vague way of telling the story is that if you stood in that one place, the solar system above us has like a current that hits the earth every once in a while. And if you're standing in that place when that current from the above us veers down and hits the earth, and if you stand in that place, you could be thrown off your feet. And they said even cars get thrown off the road if they're there. We told them not to build that there, the Westerners, but they did it anyway. So we always see cars getting thrown off the road there. Isn't that funny? Because they don't listen. She goes, and so we don't ever walk on that road. They put a sidewalk there, but people get blown off that sidewalk. And they don't know why. But we do. And if we tell them, they won't believe us. So we just stop telling them. So it is kind of hard to imagine that or even having the knowledge of that. But I believe that. What else could knock you off of that point? So I was told it. So of course I'm not going to do that. That's part of the rules and the sense of place and the sense of living in that place. You have to know these things to survive. So the other one is, this is a clear one that maybe needs to be out there, is Yosemite. And Yosemite is a Miwok word. It means grizzly bear. But there's another word that really means Yosemite. No, I'm not going to say that word. But it is the actual word that the Native people used that was the name of that valley. And what it means is gaping mouth. And so when I heard that, I automatically like, oh my God, that means there's a throat in there. What opens up a mouth and gapes it? It's to catch food. And I'm going in, it's a gaping mouth. I was really just alarmed right away. It's like, you really got to watch yourself in here then. And they were like, yeah. I didn't have to talk more about it. That's all I said. You really need to watch what you do in this valley then. They go, yeah. And like I said, that's all I had to do. We didn't have to have any more conversation than that. I didn't want to talk about where and how and why. And I just knew I need to be, as a human, respectful and careful to that area. And now I learned through stories and stuff that it's the place where most people disappear in America. And so me, obviously, I'm going gaping mouth.
I can totally believe that.
Hmm.
And just imagine, I imagine sometimes the how our the state our climate could be in if we had been listening for a century or two. I imagine if we'd listened all along to people who had the knowledge and the relationship with the homeland, with the senses of places where new people came.
Yeah,
Imagine how different it could be if we paid attention. And I like to believe it's not too late, and you and others are a big part of an effort to still do some mitigation and some healing and reconciliation with the earth, with the land. Um,
yeah, and it isn't too late. It's just rebuilding. But a lot of people paid prices already for that.
mm,
Not a non-native people did.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't need to go into details of those things either. But um, that was a while ago. So now it's kind of at a point where now we can take care of this again. And now um, I work with different groups that actually help and respect what I say. It's really nice. So
thank goodness, thank goodness.
yeah, and they're not taking it literal as just storytelling or that's just a legend. Native people made up stories to tell their kids. It's not that. These were like Joseph Campbell when he wrote his book about myths and legends. It was a myth and a legend is an actual true experience of life. And yeah, and so I was reinforced with one of the stories just recently where because what I'm teaching now, because I've taught different things and I focused on different things at different times, restoration, all that.
Hmm.
I was a dancer, the dance group, and I learned all about the culture and this, went to all the ceremonies. I learned about all those different times of
Hmm.
my life. And so right now I'm at a point of rebuilding. And so we, we're actually, I want to make this water healthy because all the birds I've seen die in the past 20 years. No more red-winged blackbirds hanging out in big amounts. Not a whole bunch of egrets. I don't see a whole bunch of egrets and snow geese pretty much disappeared at one time. They're starting to come back. You see what I mean? So it's a resurgence. There's this, some are coming back and some are growing. And but I used to see dragonflies, all kinds, but not now. Butterflies, all kinds. Monarchs disappearing. So resurgence, getting these plants back. And so a lot of people are participating with the butterfly one. So I feel I can let that go. I still do what I do, but I feel I can let that happen now. I don't have to lead that. You know,
That's really good to hear. Really
yeah,
good to
they
hear.
could, yeah, and I still spread it, teach it, but you know, right now my focus is on the marsh because the marsh is a good place to store carbon, but at the same time, I don't think people realize. I mean, you know what carbon is, but you know what we're talking about when we're talking about carbon, the carbon footprint, the carbon in DNA analysis. We're made out of carbon. Everything's made out of carbon. You know what I mean? It's just all around us. But at the same time, how do you understand how to pull carbon out of the air? How do
Mm.
we rid the excess carbon that helps create climate change? How do we do that? So I've always tried to look for an example to teach kids because you could talk about it, but it could go boom right over our heads. We could use the words, but we don't understand it.
Mm.
Just like homeland, we can use that word, but do you really understand what I'm talking about?
Mm.
I'm just talking about my area where the Wintune people live, Davis, where the Wintune people live, Woodland, all through there. And when I'm in Sacramento, I'm on the homeland of the Nisan Maidu, you know, um, different areas, different people, homelands. And then I realized through time that whenever I go into one person's homeland, I have to represent it. I have to recognize that I'm entering, the Miwok homeland. I'm entering the Pomo homeland. Just make sure you're in that sense of place so
Well,
that
is
not.
it,
Go ahead. What were you going to
I'm
say?
sorry. I'm sorry. I don't ever want to interrupt you. I'm just wondering if this is a good time for you to say more about the importance of noticing when you are transitioning from one land to another and sense of place and land acknowledgments, because
Hmm.
people who are not familiar with it, or have no idea with it, or have a lot of guilt around um, e- hearing, oh wait, land acknowledgments, um, because they haven't done healing themselves from the side of being related to ancestors who helped destroy people and lands. So there's a
Yeah.
lot. I'm hearing a lot of different reactions to land acknowledgments, like why are they here from non-native people? Why are
Hmm.
they here? What do they mean? What are? And then I'm also hearing, um, wonderful start, but not enough. What are the actions? What are actions that spring from land acknowledgments? So
Yeah.
please, please speak to that. Any of that?
You, you know, the great thing that springs from it is the communication, like you're saying. That's really an important part. And I think what I just said, as it gives you a sense of place, is a
Mhm.
really important part of it too. That's a good place to start. It's like you're living in this certain area, like I said, Yosemite, and well, no, let's walk away from Yosemite. Mount Tamalpais, that's Ohlone land. So that means that that word is Ohlone. That's one part of it, that whatever is in that area is of those people. So there's going to be a name to the beach, and it's going to be in their language. So automatically you're getting the sense of place. And the way I feel is like when I'm in my tending and gathering garden, and I mean mine, and I don't mean that it's mine. It belongs to many. It's county land, but um, I just refer to it as mine because that's where I go a lot of the times. My
Yeah.
safe place in a way. Um,
Yeah.
it's just that when I'm on that land, I'm thinking language, of that area. And the sense of place is when we've got the plants grown there, and I could speak the language with the plant and it responds. The language is still within the plant. It's that communication, and then
Mhm.
I was out there with a friend that just visited, and I'm saying, so and so seen otters here recently. When the water came back, the otters came back, and so I was going to, I was hoping we could see them. You could see them because it's a family, a male, a female, and I'm not sure how many babies, 3 or 4. I'm just excited about it. And we were just
Uh-huh.
standing there talking about it. And I'm going, it'd be neat if you could see that, that sense of place that they have. And they
Yeah.
returned as soon as the water came back in, and then next thing you know, splash, they were right in front of us. And I was, oh my gosh, I can't believe we actually did that. Walked straight to the point where they were,
Wow.
and they were just under the water watching us. It was that clear then. That water was that clear when it flushed back in. But anyway, um, again, that sense of place, that being able to connect with, and again, we're talking about native, natural living beings, the beings that have been there, like the deer. They've been there in their families for thousands of years. The rabbits, everything has been there. And so I've got a big sense of protection on the animals too, because I feel they need to be there. Coyotes were there. People just kill coyotes just like crazy. Again, those are stupid guns. Want to go kill coyotes? They're losing a lot of foothold. So we don't have any coyotes there anymore. Bobcats are getting low again. You know, um, they're there, but they used to be in huge numbers. They used to have a lot of quail. They're gone now. Few. And I'm just talking about that specific point 20 years ago. So I'm doing the best to bring it back to health, to bring back the smaller species like the invertebrates in the water.
Hmm.
And so that's now my new task. We're going to work on that, rebuilding a strong, healthy water with lots of invertebrates to bring back all these animal species to feed and get full bellies and breed well. You know, my thought is always to, um, when gathering or anything, producing plants, to make sure the animals have what they need first before we take of it. It's not, I'm not planting it for me. I'm planting it for the earth. So the animals need to get it first. Just like when the first acorns fall from a tree, that's the animals' acorns. We don't take that. We take the second fall. Again, that's my rule in the Maidu side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I honor that in my own territory, but I will ask that to other peoples in their lands, if that's what they do too. And so just check them out.
Well, before you say more, I just want to underscore one thing that you said, to in case anyone missed it, and to share with other people who might be in the space of wondering what the purpose of land acknowledgements are. When you talked about, well, it's communication, language, understanding where you are. It's like, okay, if I in the kind of Western mindset, we totally expect to recognize when we cross a Western mindset established border, like into another country or another continent. Like, oh, now we're in Spain, we will speak Spanish. Now we're in France, this different language, different food, different culture. Just
Yeah.
on that level, which might sound really basic, but I think it's not sunken in deeply to the point where it's second nature or naturally understood. Like, of course, as you said in a previous conversation, there are many nations here, the United States, and many nations, and it's
Yeah.
sort of another way of recognizing. Oh, now I'm in this nation, and and as I hope we're respectful wherever we go. So thank you for drawing that level of understanding out and more.
Yeah, and it's a level of understanding. It's also understood other places too. And it's like, well, this is the same thing, basically. It's overdue. It's way
Right.
overdue to the point that they're not understanding it. So that's why it's
Yeah.
like we have to reteach,
Right.
re-evolve it, you know.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
yeah, so
and like
I
many
think,
things that we can't see, it's like actually it's so basic. We miss it. It's like, oh, okay. Sorry, now I get it.
yeah, just like the name, like I said, that I mean, you could look at it's not just even Mount Tamalpais or Yosemite with the native languages on top of them. Napa is actually a Wintun word too, but that's a language. You know what I mean? So, and YOLO is language, is a word in the language, and so if any human being, they might think to themselves, YOLO, that's quite an unusual English word. Where did that come from? Where did that word come from? I mean, that's actually a thought I had. That's YOLO. It sounds like a native word. I'm just like, it's different sound. But so after learning the Wintun language, there's the word YOLO, and then I realized it had meaning. It has meaning, and so I came to understand it really well because I'm a naturalist too. One of my first happy job was being a naturalist, working at FEO Nature Center in Sacramento, Carmichael, Sacramento. If you ever go there, there's a village there. That's how they got me there. It's like, we're going to build a village. And so I'm like, okay, that sounds good. And they're going, you're Nisan on Maidu, right? And I'm going, yeah. Well, this is your territory. So the way they talked to me was very accepting and sweet and acknowledging. It was like a land acknowledgement to me. So I went to go work for them, and they sent me to workshops, everything. So it was really nice. They were really good to me. And
I'm so
so,
glad. It's totally what you deserve. And I just want to note we have just about 5 minutes left. So I wanted to make sure you have time to say what you wanted to say along the actions that's bringing, like, because you are leading us, like, into awareness of land acknowledgements, and then what can come from them, and actions beyond and springing from land acknowledgements. So I
yeah.
want to make sure you can touch on that.
Okay. So I will with these two things here. That's good. Thank you for letting me know time wise, because I could talk too much.
I love
Anyway,
it. Every word's very valuable.
YOLO. I'll go back to YOLO because that's in your area. And when I started learning the language, and there's that word YOLO, and I realized, well, what does YOLO mean? and it means wait. And I'm like, okay, it's not really telling me anything. I thought, how does it become the name of the county? And then I remembered when I used to do study for living history. So I did living history work, playing a camp keeper. So I do living history and play the camp keeper on non-native California, some Midwest, keeps a camp for the trappers. But anyway, that's what I do for living history. And then I realized that part of the conversation was around the Sutter Buttes, Onole, which is our name. And they're looking for a new name. And I'm hoping they grab that. Onole means like, doesn't mean middle mountain. It means gathering place. So anyway, that mountain is there in the middle of the valley, and the animals would go around it, not intentionally. They won't go the same direction. They'd go different ways. They'd just be around it, and they'd be traveling, need more food. They'd step over more. But the thing is as they traveled and on their own going around it, they kept all the grasses and everything down. So they kept grasses and everything fresh to eat. So it was housed to a lot of different animals, the elk, the pronghorn, everything. Even the Cape people have stories with pronghorn in them still. And so all these animals were all over the place. And so then I heard that our people from the valleys would go into that area by the buttes in between Woodland and the Cape Valley. They would go there and set up camp and wait for the deer and the elk and the pronghorn to settle, get done with their babies and then settle. And then they could hunt. So they would go out there and wait. You see what I mean? It was a whole waiting
YOLO.
area. YOLO. Yeah. So that's why YOLO referred to a big area too, like a county. It was the county of waiting. Because you're waiting for the animals to come in. And then when you get them and you get a lot of them, then you have to dry the meat before you take it home. Use the sun, dry the meat, make the jerky, then you could go home. You see? And so then you got people at home waiting for you to bring everything. So it was a whole feeling of wait, when you're in that routine of camping out, catching, taking home. It's wait. YOLO. Wow. So it just made me like sense of place. That people would look at that area and go, what is this? What do you do with this? Well, we're still waiting. We're still waiting for the process of gravity to give us back the land so we can rehab it, bring back a marsh or something, make it healthy again. Not that I'm going to keep doing it over and over. Take that into consideration. It needs to be rebuilt and kept. So,
wow.
Yeah. So again, that's consideration. I'm trying to teach everybody, as many people as I can, to do these mats and make these tule mat rings with cattail growing on them, so they can take it to other and rebuild them, and we could put these in other lakes and ponds that need it. Like maybe Tule Lake over in the Riverside area, that lake that came back. That was the biggest lake west of the Mississippi. So keep that in mind.
Wow.
It's not even there anymore, hardly. It just now came back. So anyway, making them healthy, because I heard that's been noxious. It's noxious because of all the dumping they've done in that area. So just things I learn and take forward with, and I'll call the people and talk to them about it, and hopefully get down there to help work on something like that. But
wow. You must have thousands of students and thousands more who want to be your students. and this is a good way to get the gift of education and understanding. And
yeah, that's what I think. And get your hands on it.
Yeah.
The sense of touch. This is the earth. Have you ever touched the earth? Hello?
The experience is incredible.
Some people haven't even touched the earth. So
it takes us out of our heads into our bodies, and where we connect with, we remember that we are a part of nature. Oh my gosh, Diana, I'm so grateful to you. We are out of time this time, but we will definitely have you back whenever you can make us time. Thank you for fitting us into your incredibly demanding schedule.
Oh, thank you for reaching out.
My pleasure. I would also like to thank the sponsors, the City of Davis Arts and Cultural Affairs Program and the California Creative Corps, and for sponsoring this show. And
Oh, good.
yeah,
Thank you too.
yeah. And thanks to the listeners and viewers, and to our producer, Dean Piper, and to our engineer, Rebel. And may we all have enriching educational conversations in diversity and climate resilience this week. Thank you.
Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech